Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we're doing the final four for my 2028 March Madness Presidential Candidates Bracket Challenge. And in the last video we had the final 8 candidates face off. We had 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pulled off the upset against Kamala Harris to advance to the final 2. Gavin Newsome won a very close battle against Pete Buttigieg to advance to the final for the Democrats. Vance unsurprisingly beat RFK Jr. to advance, and Marco Rubio won the Battle of Florida against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to advance to the final 4. So on the Democrat side, we have AOC versus Gavin Newsome. Republican side, we have Vance versus Marco Rubio. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. So for the Democratic matchup, Gavin Newsome versus AOC, this is my number 2 seed, Gavin Newsome, facing off against AOC, the number 4 seed. Now this is a very interesting matchup, as some of the similar points I explained in the Kamala Harris versus AOC video is when you look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's someone that among younger Democratic voters especially is someone that's very well known and someone that if she decided to run for president could potentially capture that Zohran Mamdani type of electorate, someone that can get a lot of younger voters out there, out to vote, involved in the primary. And typically in primaries, voter turnout is a lot lower than a general election. AOC could be someone that may be able to bring out a lot of people to vote for her, and that may give her a certain leg up over other establishment Democratic candidates who may not be able to get as many the same numbers among younger voters. Now, Gavin Newsome is an interesting candidate as he is someone that is almost seen as either the first or second favorite for the 2028 Democratic presidential primary. He is someone that's been very vocal in the media and someone that's certainly known nationwide well among Democratic primary voters. So this is a very interesting matchup. As for the polling that I have to show you right now, in the race to the White House national average for the Democratic primary, Gavin Newsome's in second place at 19 points. AOC, or 19%, is in fourth place at 8.4%. So nationally, Gavin Newsome has a lead over Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez right now of right around 11 points or so starting out in this race. Obviously, in a head-to-head matchup, it'll be different numbers, but so far, Newsome's in second, AOC is in fourth nationally. As for the early polling leaders in each respective state, so far, Gavin Newsome does have a lead in more states than AOC does, though again, we're in April of 2026. We have a long ways to go on this, but Newsome's currently leading in the polling averages in Alaska, California, Nevada, Ohio, and Maine. AOC currently has a lead or tied for a lead in the state of Vermont. And we can take a closer look at some of these numbers. In the state of New Hampshire, which Pete Buttigieg is currently leading, 23.5% in first. It's a close fight between Gavin Newsome and AOC for second place. Newsome's at 13.7, AOC is at 11.5. So in a potential matchup of Newsome versus AOC, it looks like it would be very tightly contested for a possible first primary state in New Hampshire. As for California, no surprise that it's the home state of Gavin Newsome. Newsome has a large lead at 28.5%, but it's notable that AOC is in second place at 13.5%, even ahead of Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, who are both polling higher than her nationally. So AOC in one of the early states as well in California is getting a good amount of support for someone that's not polling at the top in terms of the national polling. For Nevada, right next door to California, obviously, Gavin Newsome has a large lead, being from neighboring California, 37%, Buttigieg in second at 19%, roughly, and AOC's at 8.9%, showing Newsome's lead there. As for the state of Vermont, though, Newsome and AOC are actually tied. Now, the tiebreaker in the polling metrics does give the edge to AOC, but it's essentially a tied race in the state of Vermont, and AOC running as essentially the Bernie Sanders heir apparent in 2028. Would think AOC would get a bit of a boost in this race, so Vermont's certainly a state AOC could win in a potential primary like that. A new feature for this video that I did not use in the prior one is the YouGov feature in terms of how popular a candidate is. So for AOC, roughly about 81% of Democrats know who AOC is, or 81% of the people polled know who she is. She has a popularity rating of 41%. She's disapproved of 27%, with about 14% viewing her as neutral, according to the poll. Now, compare that to Gavin Newsome. Newsome is slightly more well-known at 82% to 81%, so basically the same, but there's a lot more of a discrepancy on popularity. He's only approved of 33%, disliked by 30%, and 18% have a neutral view. So in terms of likability among the YouGov polling rating, it seems AOC has the most to gain from that one thus far. As for what this means for this matchup, I really think Newsome versus AOC could end up being the final two for 2028. Obviously, I have it as in this video, but I think it could be the final two because I think Gavin Newsome is starting out as one of the established frontrunners for 2028. He's been running essentially for president in 2028 really since the 2024 election happened and the next day started. Newsome has been kind of viewed as one of the odds-on favorite to be the 2028 Democratic nominee. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is someone that, if she decided to run for president in 2028, I think really could upend the Democratic primary cycle, and a large reason being is what we saw with Zohran Mamdani in New York City. It's that someone that can get a lot of younger voters out to vote in these primaries, and a lot of candidates that can do that, it's a very unique ability, can sort of catch fire and have electoral success in the primaries. And then when it comes to the general election, well, the presidential race is going to be close no matter what. But in terms of the Democratic primary, I really do think AOC has a possibility of, if she ran for president, that a lot of younger Democrats would turn out in droves for her. Now, that being said, Newsome being one of the frontrunners right now, I think he has a larger advantage in terms of an early out-the-gate lead over AOC. I think he would have more money and infrastructure to run a presidential campaign against AOC. So though I was tempted to give the upset to AOC, I do think Gavin Newsome ultimately pulls out the win and becomes a Democratic nominee for 2026. But Newsome versus AOC is not the walk in the park that some analysts may think it is for Newsome versus AOC. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would put up a very formidable fight in this matchup. So I have Newsome advancing as the number 2 seed to the final. Now we move on to the Republican side, where the matchup that a lot of people have been talking about in the media, the number 1 versus number 2, J.D. Vance versus Marco Rubio. Now this one is absolutely fascinating, as right now the odds-on favorite to be the Republican nominee in 2028 is one of these two gentlemen. Vance is the vice president, Marco Rubio as the Secretary of State. The early polling data thus far shows J.D. Vance as the overwhelming favorite to be the Republican nominee in 2028 at 43.2%, excluding the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., Marco Rubio's in second at 14.1%. So Vance clearly has a commanding lead over the national field among the Republicans. And a large reason I think these are the top two candidates right now, as I mentioned in a prior video, is the national approval rating for Donald Trump is roughly around negative 14 points right now at 41.6 to 55.6 using the Decision Desk HQ polling average. But among Republicans, Trump is still approved of very strongly at 80.4 to 17.2%. So if you're looking at a Republican nominee for 2028, some of the first people that come to mind is the president's vice president and his Secretary of State. And that's why I think we see that J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are off to an early lead. Now, in terms of the polling averages, it's pretty clear J.D. Vance, he's not at the top, but he's right around the top of where he's been this whole time. In terms of where he's standing at 43.2%, Rubio actually started out pretty low. He was right around 2% or so in August. I believe it was August of 24. And he really started to jump in recent months as he's been more involved with the Trump administration and his name's been in the media more, now up to 14.1%. And I would expect throughout Trump's second term, that number will probably only continue to go up among Republican voters for Rubio. That being said, J.D. Vance is off to such a commanding lead right now that I think Vance has a certainly heavy favorite at this current point in time. Sort of like the Democratic map, the early polling that's been done thus far for every single state in the Republican primary shows J.D. Vance leading over Marco Rubio, including in Rubio's home state of Florida. Vance is the current leader. Now, in one of the most closer states of these is New Hampshire. We just had a few polls in the last couple of weeks, I believe from UNH, St. Anselm, and from, I want to say it was Emerson as well. And it shows J.D. Vance at 45.3, Marco Rubio at 20.6. So in one of the closer matchups we've seen thus far, Vance still has a lead of roughly about 25 points over Rubio. So that's sort of the dynamic of the race right now. And the trend line you can kind of see here, Vance was hovering right around 50% or so. And in the most recent numbers, his percentages did go down to 45.3. And Rubio spiked up to 20.6. So if you want to look at it from that standpoint, the direction of this race is moving in Rubio's direction. He has the momentum right now, but Vance is such an early commanding lead at this current point in time. Still bet on Vance being the Republican candidate. As for that same YouGov popularity index, Marco Rubio is currently known of by or famed by 86%. Now on YouGov, obviously, I think it's a national poll, so there's Democrats and Republicans included in this. Rubio's popularity is only 29%, disliked by 43%, and neutrals 14%. Whether or not that reflects the entire country as a whole, honestly, still to be determined. But based on this one, Rubio's got a decent amount of people that dislike him, but also 14% that view him neutrally. JD Vance, however, things are a lot more, I would say, concise and made up on this. Vance is more well known at 96% fame, but that also comes with the downside. He has a 31% popularity, 52% dislike him, 13% have a neutral opinion of him. So among nationwide voters, Vance has a much more dislike ratio than Marco Rubio does. Again, 43 dislike to 52 for Vance. Now, among Republican primary voters, those numbers won't matter really, as both Vance and Rubio are very well liked among Republicans, especially among the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. So as for this matchup 1v2, in a vacuum, I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups we could get for 2028. But I think JD Vance honestly has such a commanding lead at this time, and I think it's for good reason. I think he's going to be the Republican nominee in 2028. Donald Trump chose him as the vice president. Yes, there was some chatter a few weeks ago of could Trump prefer Rubio over JD Vance for 2028. But I ultimately think JD Vance becomes the Republican nominee in 2028. I also don't think, personally, Marco Rubio, when everything is said and done, is going to run for president in 2028. I think the options for 2028 are JD Vance is the Republican nominee, and Marco Rubio either runs as Vance's vice president, or Marco Rubio decides to sit 2028 out. And I think it's a possible scenario that a lot of Republicans are going to know 2028 will not be as favorable for the Republicans as 2024 was. And whether it's JD Vance or Marco Rubio, whoever the Republican candidate is, they're going to have a tougher time at winning. So I think whichever candidate, whether it's JD Vance or Marco Rubio, if one of them wins in 2028, obviously they're the president. But if one of them loses, I wouldn't be shocked if the other runs for president in 2032 to try and take back the White House. Or if the losing candidate decides to run in 2032 as well. But I don't think necessarily we're going to see Vance and Rubio both run for president in 2024. But in this scenario of 1v2, I think JD Vance wins and advances to the next round. So with that, now we're down after all the bracket and all the matchups we've done, starting with the top 16 Republicans, top 16 Democrats, 32 total candidates. We have now reached our final two, the matchup for 2028. JD Vance, the 1 seed for the Republicans, taking on Gavin Newsome, the 2 seed for the Democrats. I'll be doing that in the next video where I'll be previewing this matchup. Then I'll be doing a election prediction using the YAPMS, I believe it is, election map on the website. I'll be going through that, breaking down every state in the next video. For the overall ticket for president and vice president, since I had AOC and Newsome and Vance and Rubio in the final four, I'm going to just have it be Vance and Rubio as the Republican ticket and Newsome and AOC as the Democratic ticket, just to give some continuity in that, as reflecting them as my final 4 candidates. I'm going to have Newsome, AOC, and Vance and Rubio. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts on this video, on this matchup. Do you think Vance and Newsome will be the Republican and Democratic nominees for 2028? Leave all that information down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.